Untitled HappyCow. Hi, my name is Ken Spector with HappyCow, and I'm here today with Dr. Neal Barnard. He is the founder of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine and also has a new book, and it's called Power Foods for the Brain. And can you talk a little bit about your new book?
Sure. So many people don't feel as sharp as they'd like to be. And then when it gets toward the later part of life, we're worried about really serious things like Alzheimer's disease. And up until now, we thought, well, it's just genetics or it's just chance or there's not much you can do. But we now know that foods play a big role in whether or not you get these conditions or not. And I'm happy to tell you that you don't need to have one diet for your waistline and another diet for your heart and another diet for your brain. One kind of diet change does all of that, and a plant-based diet seems to be the way to go.
Oh, terrific. You've talked a lot about the salt, oil, sugar diet and sort of eliminating those things. Why should people be eliminating those things in their diet?
Well, I have to say, when we started looking at Alzheimer's disease, it really started in Chicago back in 1993, and researchers tried to figure out what are the things that are harmful and what are the things that are helpful. And the first thing that they keyed in was something that I knew about as a kid growing up in North Dakota. Bacon, dairy products, they're rich in a certain kind of fat called saturated fat. That's the fat that's solid at room temperature. The more people ate that food, or that kind of food, the higher their risk of Alzheimer's disease. That was the first thing. Second thing, trans fats, which are in donuts and a lot of snack foods. They also increase the risk as well. And then the third thing was certain metals like iron and copper, which you need traces of in your diet for health, but if you get too much, they build up in the brain. So those are really the big outlines of the diet change.
I'm vegan. You're vegan as well. What are top things that vegans can do to better themselves?
Well, the first thing is pat yourself on the back, because if you're already doing a plant-based diet, that's great. You're miles ahead of everybody else. But then the next step, I say, well, let's keep the oils kind of low. Sometimes people take that bottle of olive oil and they go glug, 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 glug all over their pasta. Go easy with that, especially if weight is an issue, because the more you cut the fat, the more you're going to have a healthy weight. And then third, I like to pick healthy carbohydrates. There's this kind of fad saying go low carb. Mistake. You should not go low carb, because think of it, beans and whole grains and starchy vegetables, they got a lot of carbohydrate in them. That powers the brain. You want that, but you don't want the junk. So we try to have brown rice instead of white rice to the extent that you can, have beans and healthy vegetables, and skip the junk.
As far as the work that you've done more recently, what are some things that have come out as far as studies go that have been perhaps shocking to you?
Well, to tell you the truth, I have to say, when I was in medical school, we had no idea that we could reverse diabetes. We had no idea that diet would play a role in Alzheimer's disease, but that's what we have found. And recently, we've been doing a research study with people who have had what you might call late-stage diabetes, where it's attacking their feet. The nerves are being attacked, and their feet hurt or they're numb, and they know they're set up for amputations before long. We put everybody on a plant-based diet, no animal products at all. We keep the oils really low. We choose the healthiest foods. And what we discover is as the weeks go by, the pain just starts to diminish and diminish. And in many cases, it just flat out goes away. And it's as if these people have been just totally rejuvenated. And for me as a doctor, that's really exciting to see.
And you're talking about type 1 and type 2 diabetes.
These people were type 2. But with type 1, we see benefits too. It's amazing to see how people really feel so much better. Now, the difference is type 1, your body isn't making any insulin. So those people will always need to have insulin injections. But they still do dramatically better. They can live normal lives.
As far as Alzheimer's go, I think that's one of the biggest fears of many people. What would you tell people right now if you had someone come in and say, look, I'm losing my memory. I feel like I'm getting Alzheimer's. What can I do? What would you say?
Okay. The first thing to do is to remember that even if it's genetic, even if it's in your family, genes are not destiny. In other words, there are genes for blue eyes or brown hair. Those are dictators. They give orders. You're going to have blue eyes or brown hair. But the genes for Alzheimer's disease are different. They don't give orders. They sort of tilt the odds in a certain direction. But the way to fight back is with a plant-based diet. When people avoid the bad fats that I was talking about, when they avoid those added metals, their risk of developing this disease drops by 70 or 80%. Huge.
80%. That's amazing. And what do you find is the reason why most people have difficulty doing this? I've talked to a lot of people, and I've told them who have or perhaps think they might be getting for early stage of Alzheimer's, to stop eating meat. What is it about these foods that are so hard to give up?
Well, I really think most people, haven't had the right information, or they've heard a lot of noise. You'll turn on the TV, and one day there's a show about why you shouldn't eat carbohydrate, and then the next day it's don't eat grain, and so forth. It's important to remember the big picture, that the populations that have grain-based diets, like Asian countries, Japan or China, when they were following traditional diets, they were the healthiest, slimmest people on the planet. And when the meat products and dairy come into their routine, then they don't do so hot. So first thing is information. Second thing, it's really good for people to have a chance to try it. And so we have a program called the Kickstart, which is an online program that allows people to go vegan for 21 days to see how they do. And we always refer people to HappyCow too, because when you're traveling, as everybody is nowadays, you want to find a place that's got a lot of choices for you. So I got to thank you for the great work that you're doing there.
Well, thank you. As far as things, other diseases, let's say psoriasis and then allergies, what would you recommend to people who have bad allergies and people who have psoriasis?
Yeah, for people who have inflammatory conditions like psoriasis, and I would put in the same category rheumatoid arthritis and a number of others, the first thing that I look at is dairy products. It may not be the only trigger, but it's a very common trigger, and when people get away from it, they do a whole lot better. And oddly enough, I have seen a lot of folks who have an allergy. Let's say they're allergic to their cat, and they pet the cat, and then their eyes start to itch or something like that. For some reason that I can't explain, when people get away from dairy products, other allergies seem to get better. It's not that they're allergic necessarily to the dairy, but somehow it's causing other allergies to lighten up. I've had friends with asthma. They get away from the dairy products, their asthma improves. Somehow the dairy proteins, I believe is what it is, are priming the body to react too strongly to allergens.
And as far as something like psoriasis?
Yeah, exactly the same story. Dairy number one, but you really want to get away from all animal products.
So if the allergies aren't dissipating, would you say salt, oil, and sugar are also contributing factors to these diseases?
Well, they may be. Salt, as everybody knows, affects blood pressure, and it also causes the body to lose calcium from the bones. Oil, just a humongous source of calories that you really don't need. And so some people get a little addicted to oily foods, and they tend to have trouble losing weight. Sugar is, in my view, has a couple of issues. One is it's not very high in calories itself, but you mix it in with some butter and a cookie, and suddenly it's sort of like the Trojan horse. The sugar leads you in, but it's that hidden fat that fattens you up. That's one of the big problems with it. The other thing is a lot of people have sort of stomach problems, digestive issues. They think they've got irritable bowel, and they don't realize that it's because of the sugar load that they're taking in, changing the gut flora, and also your body can only handle so much sugar. If it doesn't absorb it, what happens is the bacteria down there start to metabolize it, and they produce gassiness and so forth. So getting away from sugar is a good idea. Now, it's not a zero sugar diet. You eat an apple, there's natural sugars in the apple. That's fine. That's good for the body. It's all that added junk you don't need.
What are top 5 foods that you feel vegans like myself perhaps aren't eating and should be eating more of?
I could probably give you the top 5,000, but I like to think of it as in 4 groups. There are vegetables, there are fruits, there are whole grains, and there are beans. And within those 4 groups, have fun, explore them, try different ones, see which ones you like.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for the wonderful information. This is Dr. Neal Barnard, and he is the head and founder of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. I'm Ken Spector with HappyCow, and thank you so much.
Sure, my pleasure.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
The Healthy Eating and Living Guide, HappyCow.